Yo, Donny, what's for lunch? You know what? Let's do a French onion soup.
I'm a private chef, cook for money, yeah.
Guys, welcome back to What's for Lunch, another solo episode here. Today, we're doing one of my favorites, a French onion soup, and we're doing it from top to bottom. We're making the stock, we're caramelizing all the onions, so I'm gonna show you the entire process all by scratch. So, we're gonna make a stock. The first stock, whenever I'm cooking with beef bones, I keep them all in a bag and I freeze them for something later, like making a stock. So here I have a bunch of short rib bones from the other day. I also have a combination of, I have some short ribs still on the bone and some beef chuck right here. So we're gonna use a combo of both. If you don't have bones on hand though, you can go to any butcher and just ask for bones. They'll sell you bones right there. You need a decent amount of bones to make a good stock. So whenever you're cooking, I recommend if you have meat with bones on it, just keep them in a bag, keep them in the freezer. They'll last, and then you can pull them out when you're making your stock. To go with our stock, we have the holy trinity here, a mirepoix. We have our carrots, we have a celery, and we have an onion. So these are going to be for our stock. And then for the French onion soup, the onion part itself is you just have some yellow onions right here, some sweet onions. That's all it takes. These are going to take time. There's no way to cheat a French onion soup. Even if you're not making the stock from scratch, the onions are going to take at least an hour, at least, to caramelize onions properly. But otherwise, we have some parsley here that's going to go on the stock, some aromatics, and some thyme. Pretty simple ingredient-wise. Again, this one just takes a little bit of time. So to get started, I'm going to get these bones roasting in the oven. Now, there's two ways you can make a stock. You can roast the bones. You can not roast the bones. You can use beef cubes like I'm using here. So the main difference between a stock and a broth, you hear those two terms. They're used pretty much interchangeably. The big difference is traditionally, if you're making a strict by the book stock, it's primarily bones. If you're making a broth, it's primarily the meat. A stock is going to yield a much more gelatinous mixture once it's done, because you're using all the connective tissues in the bones. They break down and you get this gelatin that comes out of it. With the beef, if you're using beef chuck, beef cubes itself, it doesn't have that connective tissue in the bones itself. There's still some in there. So we're going to do a combo of both. We're making a broth and a stock. Just this is all I have on hand. It's still going to be delicious. What you do with the bones, we're going to roast those. I'm going to pat that dry. You want them dry just so they don't steam, just so they kind of roast in the oven. You don't need to roast the bones if you don't want to. It's just going to build a little bit more depth of flavor. It's going to be a little bit more robust. And then with that, I'll throw some carrots in. Now, carrots, you don't have to peel, especially if we're doing a stock. You can just take it and really rub that outside skin with a rough towel or an abrasive clean sponge. You'll see that the other layer kind of just peels off. And this is especially nice if you're roasting carrots and you want to keep the integrity of a carrot and make it look still beautiful, all these little ridges in there. If you peel it, those are all going to come off. Rub it down really good, and you'll see it kind of cleans itself off there. All that crap goes into your towel. So I'm just going to break these up. A couple carrots are going to go on here. And then honestly to that, I'm just going to put this right in the oven. And we'll do the rest in a pot. So I'm doing two combinations of two techniques. If you want to do this all in a Dutch oven on your countertop or on your stovetop, that works too. So we're gonna get this medium-high heat, a little bit of olive oil. Let this get hot. We're gonna build a lot of color. We're gonna brown all this meat. Now, if you don't want to make the stock yourself, by all means, you can skip the step, buy some beef stock. It's gonna taste a lot better though if you make it yourself. And we're gonna be making it in a pressure cooker. So normally, a really good beef stock takes 12 hours to make, to really get all that connective tissue to release and turn into gelatin. It takes a lot of time. With a pressure cooker, we're gonna take that time down to like an hour and a half, maybe max. Because with a pressure cooker, all that pressure, it increases the boiling point of water. So water usually boils at 212. In a pressure cooker, it's like 250. So all that added heat is gonna release the connective tissue and turn it into gelatin much faster than if you were just doing it low and slow on a stovetop. And I'm not adding any salt to the roasted bones or to this, because when you're making a stock, you really don't want to salt anything until the end. Once this is kind of starting to smoke a little bit. And you can use, if you have oxtail, if you have just bone marrow itself, you can roast the bones itself, but I have short ribs and chuck here. Look at that, the people love it. You hear making a stock, everyone's cheering. This is gonna be quick. Well, just like a minute, 2 minutes on each side just to build. Look at that. See, that's what we're going for right there. We're building a nice little crust, getting some color on these. While that's browning up, we're going to multitask here, because our onions are going to take, like I said, like an hour to caramelize. So I just have some white onions here that I peeled, and we're just going to slice them. And you don't have to worry if they're not all perfectly sliced. This is going to cook down for so long. that if you have some odd or end shapes, it's gonna cook down to basically nothing. So you don't have to worry if they're exact or not. So this is the color we're going for. Looking beautiful. Next we'll add a carrot, some celery, and then another onion in here just to build our mirepoix. We can turn the heat down. We're just gonna try to sweat these out a little bit. We don't want too much color on them. Now we have all this beautiful fat that's rendered out just from that. And we have all the bits of flavor stuck to the bottom. That's called the pan fond. We're gonna build on top of that. So because we're making a stock, you really don't have to worry about everything being cut perfectly. It's gonna cook for so long in the pressure cooker that it's not gonna matter. So we just go in with carrot in there. And then an onion, look, I'm not even gonna really worry about how it's cut, kind of quarter it up. That's perfect. And then some celery. Make sure you wash your celery. Celery is always pretty dirty. Wash everything, but celery especially, there's dirt all in the roots. So celery can go in. Give this a stir. Let this just start to sweat down a little bit. Grab all those flavors from the bottom of the pan. Let's check on our roasted bones here. Okay, yeah, look. That's going nice. Bones are starting to roast. Still some meat left on them, but basically we're doing the same thing as we did in the pan there. These bones are gonna get a little bit dried out, more dried out, and a little deeper aromatics on them than they are just quickly in the pan. So we're focusing more on the bones. There's some meat on the outside, but the meat's browning as we just did in the pan, so that's great. Nice, look at that. And we basically deglazed the bottom of the pan already. You can see that there's none of those brown bits still stuck. We're gonna have tons of flavor that way. All right, I'm gonna get our pressure cooker ready now. We're gonna go high pressure for an hour. Everything we've roasted off the meat and some of the bones, short rib, go in there. All right, these have had about 15 minutes to roast. Yeah. All right, while this pan's still hot, I'm gonna take a little bit of red wine, see if this is still hot enough. Not quite, so I'm gonna put this back in the oven to let that deglaze. Just the same as we did here, I want all those brown bits picked up. Oh, it's bubbling away. So it's starting to cook off. So as you can see, some of the wine vapors coming up, alcohol vapors coming up right now. We want that even more. This I can just chuck back in the oven. Let that start doing. We'll mess around with it. We're gonna do the same thing here, just a splash of wine. You don't need wine in stocks though. It's not super traditional. Make sure when you're cooking it, all the alcohol is cooked off. You don't want any of that alcohol, so really let all those vapors cook. And this is gonna help just deglaze the pan even more. So let that go. Now we're gonna let that wine continue to cook off. And I'm gonna get all of our onions in a pan now. All right, and to this, I'm gonna add half a stick of butter. All right. All right, look at this. Take our spoon now, scrape everything we can off this pan. That's all flavor, you want all that in there. Add it to this. You can smell it too. Once you're not smelling any harsh, kind of the alcohol part of the wine, once it's very mild and sweet, you can go in here. And that we're gonna cover with water, just until that fill line on the pressure cooker. So even if all the bones aren't covered, don't worry. That's perfect. Some thyme, some parsley stalks and all. Let's give it a rip. Now this is gonna be our beef stocks. Close that off, let it come to pressure, and that's gonna go for about an hour, which is perfect timing because that's how long these onions are gonna take to soften up and caramelize. We'll start at like a medium heat just to melt that butter, get it going. We're gonna start with the lid on, covered for about 30 minutes, maybe less, just so everything starts to sweat down. Then we're gonna take it off because we want all that water to evaporate. You don't need to add sugar to this, you don't need to add anything, you really just need butter and thyme, a little bit of salt. There's enough natural sugars in the onion themselves that they'll come out. It just takes time. There's no way to really rush this. All right, the onions now have been going covered for about half an hour. You can see a bunch of water now has come out, a lot of moisture in the pan, so we're gonna leave the cover off and give this a stir probably about every 10 minutes and let this continue to cook until we get a deep caramelized color. Let that go and you'll have the best caramelized onions you've ever had. All right, while everything finishes cooking, we're gonna make our little crouton of bread for the French onion soup. So I have a French baguette here. I'm gonna slice a couple pieces on a diagonal so you get the most surface area. A little bit of olive oil. And these can just toast up in our oven. Okay, the beef stock is finished cooking in the pressure cooker. I've just taken the lid off. What I'm gonna do now is any of those big chunks of beef, I'm gonna take out and save because that's delicious stewed beef right there. We're not gonna let that go to waste. Even the bone, you can get good stuff off of that. So get your big pieces out if you use beef cubes. And now we have all this fat on top of it. All that fat needs to come off. There's two ways to do this. You can take it with a ladle and gently skim it like so, and you get all that comes off. But the easiest way is to let this cool down and that fat will solidify on top and you can just literally lift it right off with your hands. I'm gonna strain this now. And just because I have the time, because there's a lot of noise going on in this basketball tournament, I'm gonna put this in the fridge just to cool so that I can get the rest of that fat off just solidified by hand. So that's the next step in this process. Okay, the beef stock cooled and I went ahead and skimmed all the fat off, so that is what we're left with. Here, you can see the onions. It's after about 2.5 hours. They're looking phenomenal. That's what you want. It just takes time, honestly. So now we're gonna do a splash of, if you ever caramelize onions, taste them. Adds a little bit of vinegar, a little apple cider vinegar. It's just gonna round out the flavor in those onions now. Just a little bit of acidity in there, a little bit more bite, and the flavor changes completely here. It's barely noticeable, but it's fantastic. It's all you need. Just a little swig, just a splash. Okay, all the hard work is done. Now, just to finish it off, take our beef stock. It goes in right over those onions until they're covered. And then this we're gonna bring up to a simmer. Now the ratio is up to you. If you like it where you have a lot more onions to broth ratio, or it's very, very oniony, by all means add as much as you want. I'm gonna go a little bit more broth. Now here's where we taste and see if it needs any salt, any pepper, any seasoning. Throw some pepper. Touch of salt. And now this you can let simmer. It's good to let simmer for like 20, 30 minutes just to get everything melded together. And then we go into our bowl. It's that easy. Right up to the brim there. To finish that baguette we toasted earlier. There's a nice crispy baguette that's gonna soak up. I'm gonna go 2 pieces right across the top. And then our shredded Gruyere cheese. The shredded Gruyere goes right on top. And this finishes under the broiler. We need a good amount of cheese. We want this bubbling over. Broiler, 2 minutes. All right, and it finishes with this blowtorch. All right, we got special guest Rone, who's not in the kitchen a lot. He's in Chicago. We have Big Cat.
Always in the kitchen.
Who's always in the kitchen, but that's what I like. It's either him or Brandon Walker. And today you guys have a little French onion soup. The stock is homemade. Everything is from scratch. This is hot, so be careful. But you guys can dive in there. Go ahead.
Please. No. Okay, go. Oh, beautiful. Look at that cheese. Look how melty that cheese is. Beautiful. It was just onions?
French onion, yeah. You've had French onion soup.
Yeah, I have. I just...
Onions and beef broth, cheese.
It's so flavorful.
You like that?
It's so. Wait, so the beef? You said there's beef stock?
Beef stock, yeah. I made the stock. You made the
Real
stock.
taste. You taste the beef. It's very beef tasty.
It's a bunch of beef bones in the Instant Pot for like an hour and a half. Made the stock. Onions cooked for like 2.5 to 3 hours.
Oh,
so good.
Finishes it
not
off.
too oniony either.
Is there any smell better? Is there any smell better than caramelized onions?
No, onions and butter. That's if your kitchen ever smells bad, just put onions and butter, which I probably should have done after the fish. But
Yeah. Yeah, do you hear he came in on Sunday night. So Sunday night, no one's here except PMT. We came in to record. I come in. I actually thought we had a plumbing leak. He came in. He just cooked a shitload of cod and left.
God?
And he's like, "What? I don't think it smelled."
it didn't.
I legitimately thought we had a plumbing leak. I was like, "This smells so horrific."
You can't say it didn't if he smelled.
I know, but
it
didn't smell with me.
He was like, "This is all."
It didn't. Maybe because I was around it all night. But you guys also came in early, so the timing was off for the stream. But yeah, no more fish on Sunday.
No fish Sunday.
No fish Sundays.
No fish.
It was fish and Brussels sprouts. The combo of those are great.
Oh, I didn't know it was Brussels sprouts.
Yeah,
too.
that. Anyway, back to the soup. Back to something that smells good.
soup.
Do you think that too many basic bitches have taken over French onion soup, or can just a regular guy like me enjoy it still?
Even a bad French onion soup is still is good. So Yeah, I think a guy like you should enjoy it. But it's my favorite
You're a French onion soup guy, Rone.
appetizer at a steakhouse. A nice French onion soup.
I love French onion soup. I'm just scared of like when the whole table gets French onion soup. I'm like, am I basic? You
I
know
don't
what I
think
mean?
so.
I'm a chili chowder guy.
You're a chili chowder?
Chili or chowder.
I was gonna say that combo's
No. I like when I go to a restaurant, it's like soup. If it's a chili or a chowder, I'm in. French onion, it's like maybe 50-50.
Okay. But if you have an option, are you doing a soup usually when you're getting a full meal? You're gonna
Chili or chowder.
it's chili or chowder.
Yeah. That's I could have been more clear about
Well, I-
chili and chowder guy.
I meant, but is that every?
You enough follow me being a chili?
But that I know that could have meant for your main course. I didn't know if it was an appetizer. I'm asking if it's
No, I'm a chili chowder guy.
okay.
He's a chili chowder guy.
Either way you cut it. French onion soup goes better with a little Pepsi, zero sugar here. I think this food deserves some Pepsi, so I'm gonna crack one open. I'm gonna have a bite. I'm gonna have a bite myself.
Hell yeah, dude, you gotta get it on. It's delicious. You're gonna like that. You're gonna like it's a Gruyere cheese that I prepared. Look at these stock.
And a little bit of my saliva.
Just a little bit of backwash from me and Big Cat.
That's very good.
It was very good.
Very
Well
good.
done, brother. Congrats, chef.
Thank you,
All right,
chef.
guys.
Thank you, chef.
See you guys next time. Peace.
Hell yeah. Good. That was really good.